we're talking about good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Sorry for the delay. We're continuing what we began yesterday, and what we're learning about is what exactly is matzah. And in order to understand this idea of what matzah is and the matzah that they ate back then when they left Egypt, and what exactly happened when they ate this matzah, and why we eat matzah now, and what happens when we eat it today. And so we're understanding a little bit what is a holiday? What are the holidays? What are the Yomim Tovim in Judaism? In order to understand that, we have to understand a little few ideas of Kabbalah. But first of all, let's understand, before we start understanding Kabbalah, let's understand Netina. Kabbalah means to receive, and Netina means to give. So let's give charity. First of all, here's our charity box. Charity saves from death, things that are less severe, saves from everything, and it accomplishes all good. Charity is very essential to life. Okay, so what's going on over? What is the idea of the first of all of Judaism in general? Judaism in general is to reveal the oneness of God. That's the motto of Judaism is understand Jews, Shema Yisrael, understand Jews. God is our God. God is one. God is one means that there's nothing except for God. God creates the world. It doesn't mean that the world is God. It means that the world is a creation of God. The world, in a way, doesn't exist independently from God. The world is created from God. This is impossible to understand, but we can talk about it, and it's the truth. Because why is it impossible to understand? Because we're also being created by God, and our understanding is being created by God. So there's something more real than understanding. It's out of the category of understanding. And that's what Judaism tries to bring into the world. Judaism tries to bring into the world the awareness of the Creator, something that's so infinitely good that we can't comprehend it, that we can't grasp it. And that's what the Judaism wants to reveal. And that's the idea of the commandments. The ultimate commandment, of course, was the tabernacle. And we're waiting for the first temple. But every time we do a commandment, that reveals another aspect of God. It's like a little holy temple. Every time you do a commandment. Okay. So this is the Rebbe. That's also the idea of the holidays. The holidays in Judaism are called Yom Tov. That's sort of a good translation. It's a holy day. A holy day. But in Hebrew, the word is called a Yom Tov, a day that's good. And good means a revelation. Like it says that when Moses was born, the house, it says they saw the child and he was good. It says it means that the house, it says, was filled with light. And on the first day of creation, God saw the light and it was good. Light is good. So good, Yom Tov, means a day when there's good which is revealed. Okay, so God has a personality, just like a human. We're made in the image of God. So God has a personality, just like human beings have personalities. And you can reveal a person's personality. You can reveal different aspects of a person if you find favor in the king's eyes or whatever. So then the king likes you. The king likes you. Here's also the king, in this case, is God, is our creator. And the fact that everybody is alive is a sign that God likes everybody, somehow or other, down deep. That's what it means we're created in God's image. So God likes everybody. But we have to reveal this in the world. And in order to do that, we have to act properly. So acting properly is not exactly always what we think is acting properly. Acting properly means according to the Torah. The Torah is a book which tells you how to act properly. When we act properly, that pleases God. And pleasing God, God reveals himself. Of course, the difference is that the world is not really separate from God. God is not like a separate king from the world. Okay, this again is going into the realm of totally above understanding, beyond understanding. In a way, we don't exist, but on the other hand, God is commanding us, and we give pleasure to God. So doesn't make any sense. So the answer is right. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what Judaism is. But on the other hand, it's reality. That's the truth. That's really the truth. Really, and when it comes down to it, nothing in the world makes sense. Why does it feel good if we succeed? What? That's just the way things are. Why does you take certain drugs or whatever makes you feel good? You do certain things that makes you feel bad. Why is it? That's the way God set up the world. Right? People want to live, they don't want to, what is survival of the fittest, all this stuff. That's the way God set up the world. But really, basically, nothing is really understandable if you really think into it deeply. Okay, that doesn't justify, thinking about God, which is more not understandable, but just the idea that we can get along with the idea that you can live very well with things that are not understandable, and in a way, it's more human to live in a world where you don't understand things. Where you go, let's say, according to your conscience. Why is it a person has a conscience doesn't want to steal? Why? I don't know. Of course, the psychiatrist, and they can. I'm going to turn on the light over a little bit. They can explain away everything. Okay, but here we go. So now the Rebbe is saying that what happens on Yom Tov is there's a revelation of God's Bina, and on Shabbat is a revelation of God's Chachma.
Because I got cleaning my house.
1 second, 1 minute, 1 minute. I have to turn off something over here.
Yeah. So that guy that was like racial.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so here we go. Where is this? Okay, so that's simcha. Happiness. Happiness comes from understanding. Happiness comes from understanding. When something happens that's enjoyable, but you understand it's enjoyable, then you get pleasure from it, right? You look in your bank account and you find that you have, a $100,000 gift. Oh, I'm very happy. Someone says that gift is from the mafia. They're going to catch you from the government to put you in jail. Now you're not happy anymore, right? They're not happy. You get a big gift or whatever, or something, and it's from some sort of an evil source. It's a bribery. All of a sudden, you're not happy. Right? You win a big prize. You become number one. He said, well, I'm so happy. He says, yeah, but you should know that anyone who wins that prize, in 3 days, they kill him. Now you're not happy anymore. It all depends on your understanding. But you eat a nice meal, it's really good. So somebody says, they says, oh, that you ate that, that's poison. All of a sudden you feel terrible. You want to you want to throw up. You want to get rid of it. Right? It all depends on your understanding, what your understanding is. So it says that's the whole idea of the holidays. The holidays, that's in the realm of understanding God. Therefore, they're called happiness. But Shabbat, this is the revelation of what's called Chachma. Chachma, there, it's a higher level. Let me just see where we are. I had this marked off. Hold on, this is 1 second. Where is this? One minute, I marked. Oh, we're over here. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So it's okay. But Yom Tov, it says, V'zeu when Yom Tov. That's the whole idea of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is the revelation of happiness. That from the level of what's called akeret abayit, that the Jewish people being very low, says, all of a sudden become what's called the mother of children. What does it mean, akeret abayit? That's from like the language like a rodent or something that lives underneath the house. It's very, very low. And suddenly it becomes elevated. The Jewish people, from being very low and not understanding God and not having any happiness in God, on Yom Tov, on the holidays, as they become elevated. And it says that they become, says, Akeret Abayat, Ema Banim Smecha. It's a sentence in Psalms. It's one of the Psalms we say in Hallel prayer. Akeret Abayat, Ema Banim Smecha, that we become a mother of children. In other words, that we give birth to emotions. So much do we understand God that we give birth to emotions. That's the idea of the holidays. Okay, every Jew feels this to different degrees. Different degrees. Like it says, okay, Malchut, this is what's called Malchut, the God's power of creative force, which comes into all the worlds. That's in the weekdays, and suddenly on the holidays, a door opens up, and this is written in the book called Shushan Sodot, which is one of the pupils of the Ramban. Okay. So Yom Tov, that's Yom Tov. Yom Tov, it says that the Jewish people, the awareness is there to arise up lamaila into the world called the world of Atzilut. Atzilut is pure feeling of godliness. You feel the Creator. And that you become what's called the mother of children. Bina, that's understanding. Hasaga, grasping, or in so if you can get a little bit of the idea of what godliness is, it comes into your mind. Nigla, there's revealed then, Sha'orein Sof, that the infinite light of God comes down into the world to a way that it can become grasped, tefisa, that we can become graspable and understand it. And what is possible to understand from the infinite light of God, which is revealed. And this big revelation until that the day is transformed from misery to happiness, that the darkness will see light. That's the holidays. Good morning. That's the holidays. In the holidays, there is a revelation of godliness that we can relate to. Of course, who relates to godliness in general? Who relates to godliness? But the fact is, the feeling is there. That's what the Rebbe is saying. The feeling is there. Do you grasp it? Maybe you feel it in a very sort of surrounding, how do you say, external way in general, but it's a generally good feeling. That we said, that's what it says, grasping the light of the face of the king. Okay, that's what's happening. You sense it, you feel it, that's up to you. But the fact of the matter is that's what's happening on the holidays. It's a revelation which is understandable a little bit. It can make us happy. That's what it was. And 3 times when there used to be a holy temple, 3 times a year, everyone would really feel this happiness. They would go up to the holy temple. They would feel even happier. Like, for instance, just like a soul, shemit aneged, a person gets pleasure, but olam haba, after it dies, goes to heaven. There it says the souls get pleasure from ziva shechina, from the ray of God's presence, tachat heyota, instead of being in the body, a physical body, v'nifrada misham, and it gets separated. After a person dies, so the soul separates from the body. The soul is eternal. When the soul is in the body, so it's limited to the body, and it senses what the body senses. It's controlled by the sensations of the body, or rather the body diverts the attention of the soul from spiritual things to physical things. So when the person dies, so the soul leaves the body and it goes up lamakom chutzpah, to the place where the soul originated from, and it gets pleasure in Gan Eden, in what's called the upper heaven, and it gets pleasure from the ray of God's of God's infinity. A tremendous pleasure. And on that it says, it says that those who love me, or that I love, get yesh. Yesh means, how do you call it? Yesh. Yesh. Okay, the word yesh means something, a thing. Yesh. Shemitgaleh, that you get a revelation of Or Ein Sof in yesh. It's like a thing, to be a saga, that you can feel the pleasure in heaven, you can grasp it, you can understand it. That's after a person dies. Okay, you don't have to wait until you die in order to get this pleasure of going to heaven, but because it's there all the time. It's just that we can't feel it because our body covers up. So some people can make a mistake and say, well, therefore the body is really bad, and we have to get out of the body. That's basically what religions are. That the body is bad, the world is bad. Our whole goal is to go to heaven, because in heaven there's this tremendous pleasure. There's in one way this is definitely true, but Judaism comes and tells us that no, the fact is that the body, if used properly, is much higher than heaven. And that when we get revelations in heaven, that's only a little bit of a ray of what really happened when we were doing commandments in this world. Just a little ray of it, what we can understand of it. It's like taking a person, like a poor person off the street, and giving him $1 trillion. So he doesn't know what to do. So instead of that, you give him a a steak and a nice meal and a good suit, right? You give him a nice house. You provide all that he understands, right? How much did the steak cost? How much did the meal cost? Let's say good food all of his life and a beautiful house and a nice car. The whole business cost, let's say, maximum $1 million, right? Food for the whole rest of his life and a nice house and a nice car. The whole thing cost $1 million. And instead of giving him $1 trillion, but $1 trillion, he wouldn't know what to do with it. It's the same thing with us. In this world, you do Torah and the commandments. That's a revelation of $1 trillion. But we can't take that much. After a person in this world, we don't get it at all. A person goes to heaven, he gets a little bit of it. It's called the ray of God's presence. But it can be grasped with the soul. That's the level of bina, of understanding. The Hainu Sheyesh Hasaga, you can understand a little bit how the soul went out from darkness, etc. You realize how false this world was and how good the world to come is, and etc. Zeu benarav yaber rogel. That's what it says in the future. We will go when the sea split, so they went over the sea. It says in the future they'll split the river. Beregel sham nisvachuba. We will be happy. What's the river? That's the river that came out of Eden. Now Eden, it says Gan Eden. Eden is Chachma, and the river that comes out of Eden, this is what's called Bina. And this is what happens at every holiday. This is what happens at every holiday. And every holiday of the 3 holidays, on Passover and on Shavuot and on Sukkot, the Jewish people would go up to the Holy Temple. Visham, and there they would feel the source of joy, the source of understanding. Okay, all this is talking about Mochan de Ema. That's what's called Bina. That's what's called the world to come. That's what's called Gan Eden, heaven, the upper heaven, revelation of the pleasure to the souls according to their ability. But there's something higher. What's higher is what's called Mochin Da'aba. This is talking about Bina, right? But there's something higher, God's Chachma. God's Chachma, it says Chachma me'ayin timatzah. The aspect of Chachma, this is a pure revelation of God's, pure revelation that, they say, the source of this ray of understanding, the source. In God's name is Yud and then Hey and then Vav and then Hey. So the Yud, that stands for Chachma. And the Hey, the first Hey, is Bina. Just look at the letters. The letter Yud is very small. According to Judaism, just a little dot is enough. That's already the letter Yud. Maybe the laws of writing a Sefer Torah and etc. It has to be bigger than just a little dot. But the fact is, a little dot is big enough to be a Chachma. It represents the letter Yud. And the letter Hey, let's say you read a very small Sefer Torah. The little dot is good enough. That the letter Hey, that's already wide and long. So the letter Hey, that indicates something that's graspable. You can get your hands on it. And the letter Yud is just a little point. It's indefinable. But it's the source of everything. That's called Ma. It's Eino Musag Lamaila. Bina gives us happiness. That's because it's understandable. Chachma makes us realize that we can understand God. That's just aspects of God. But the essence of God itself, himself, that's really who's creating us. That's where everything comes from. That's where Bina comes from. That's totally incomprehensible. That's what's called bitul. Bitul means total surrender. This is much, much higher than the level of Bina understanding. We're going to see that's what Matza is. That's what faith, above understanding. We'll see. The Hainu Shemidgaleh reveals the infinite light of God. This is not just an aspect of God that can be understood. This is not the soul going to heaven. This is the essence of God, the source of all the heavens, all the spiritual worlds. No thought can possibly grasp this. No soul. You can't get any pleasure from it because you can't grasp it. The level of Chachma is pure godliness. It's the source of the source of the spiritual. Now, the spiritual we don't understand. We're in this world, we don't understand the spiritual. We don't understand what spiritual is. We know that there is such a thing, right? We heard about it, we read about it. The visions of Ezekiel, this, that's all spiritual. Those are revelations of God, aspects of God, what's called rays of godliness. That's called the Shekhinah. godliness. But the essence of God itself, the source of all this, I mean, that's everywhere. There's nothing outside of God. And it's totally incomprehensible. But it's everywhere. It says that's what is revealed in especially in Matza. We'll see. That's what was revealed in Mount Sinai. That's why their souls jumped out of their bodies. The Inyan, Giloy, this revelation, this is what's called Bittul HaSaga. Total, how do you say, wiping out of understanding, a Bittul HaNeshamas, and the surrender of the souls in their very being in Orein Sof Baruch Hu. The Leis Machshav, there is no thought that can possibly grasp God. This, says the Rebbe, is revealed on Shabbat. So the holidays, that reveals God's Bina, and Shabbat reveals God's Chachma. Loch, and therefore, Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite light of God, not the infinite light of God, God himself, the infinite one, blessed be he, not Orein Sof. The Leis Machshav, there's no thought that can possibly grasp him. He's not in the realm of thought, not in the realm of understanding, pleasure, grasping. Hagila Ezu, this revelation is revealed on Shabbat. And therefore, Omru, it says, therefore, it says in the Talmud that only with great difficulty did God permit to speak words of Torah on Shabbat. Because the Torah they allowed, because the Torah comes from Chachma. So ideally, it should be that on Shabbat, we only say words of prayer and words of course, that's not the way it is, but the fact of the matter is that's what it should be. That's what it should be. People would not be able to stand up on a thing like that. But that's what's going on in Shabbat. Pirish Nafka says that wisdom comes out from this level. It comes out, Nafka like Labar, it comes outside, so to speak. This is a ray of godliness which comes out from God's Chachma. But the essence of what God's Chachma is, this is Rama v'nizgava l'mayla. This is much, much higher than any level from the level of the Torah. It says the Torah comes out of God's Chachma. Oh, so this is, Begilo said, this revelation is not relevant to be happy. This is the source of the Torah. Here it's not relevant to any happiness. You can't grasp what this is. 1 second. Let's see. There is no pleasure which can be felt only in what you can understand. How you come from darkness into light. Because you can feel some sort of a light. But this level is infinitely high, and you can't possibly grasp it. It's only what's called faith. After you understand sheyored lamata mata, then ba'ala. So when you go from below to above, maila, then you can have happiness. All of this is not relevant only in bina, happiness, understanding, even pleasure. Shehu giloi or in so in level of yesh v'hasaga. How it is above. But Abba, this aspect of God, which is the source of Bina, the source of understanding, the source of the spiritual, the source of happiness, the source of understanding. But that's Chachma. This is like the Yud of God's name, which is revelation of Mashalamayla. This is a revelation of what's above understanding. There it's not possible up and down at all. Maila and Mata, up and down, this is are equal. Darkness and light is the same. This is called the Creator. It's almost like a person, let's say a person who's rich and a person is poor. Take a person who's poor. He has nothing. He's eating from garbage cans. He hasn't got where to sleep. It's freezing cold in the nighttime. He has to go and huddle up under newspapers or whatever in a corner. And suddenly you make him rich. He becomes rich. He becomes rich, and he has the helpers and servants and guards, right? And everything. He feels happy. Now he can sleep in a warm bed. He can give charity. He feels good. Difference between rich and poor. Big difference. Big difference. And then you have the king. By the king, there's no rich and there's no poor. The king can take the richest person in the country and make him poor in an instant. Just change his name, right? You're Mr. Rich. What's your name? Mr. Poor. Now you change your name. Now you are called Mr. Rich and you're called Mr. Poor. Change places. That's it. Suddenly the richest become the poorest and the poorest becomes the richest in 1 second. By the king, everything is equal. The king is not rich and he's not poor, right? The king owns everything. He's above the whole entire category of that. If someone says, well, the king is really rich, they'll throw him into prison. The king owns everything. And that's the same thing over here. You can't understand the king. That's the same thing. Rich and poor, that's like the difference between this physical world and going to heaven. Heaven, there's rich. You feel godliness. But that's the level of Bina. But Chachma, that's the king himself. That's the king. You can't understand the king. When the king comes, everybody just bows down. The king can just take your life in a second. That's what's revealed, says the Rebbe. On Yom Tov is revealed God's simcha, God's joy, God's bina. On Shabbos is revealed God's chachma. Surrender to the king. That's what it means. Darkness is like light. There's two likes. Like it should say darkness is like light by God. But what it means is that darkness is light, is like light alone. That wouldn't be enough. We have to say that also darkness doesn't become dark by godliness. I'm sorry. If you say darkness is like light, then you would say that darkness by God, darkness and light are equal. How do we express it? We say like darkness is like light. Tu chafim. What does it mean? That not only that darkness doesn't make dark anymore. When you turn on the lights, it becomes light outside. But darkness is totally equal to light. And also light is also equal to darkness. How does that mean? Shekol hanorim mitchashchim kamei before God. Like I said, poor is like rich. Rich is like poor. But that doesn't make any sense. A person that's poor is poor, and a person that's rich is rich. So by the king, it's not that way. By the king, the richest person is like being poor. And the poorest person is the same thing as being rich. By the king, rich and poor is exactly the same thing. A genuine king, the same thing. He's a king. That's Keter Elyon, even though the Iu or Tzach or Metzuchsach Uchamu. It says Keter, the upper crown of God, even though it's a tremendously brilliant light, but it's dark in front of the essence of God. It says Chachma. And this is Sisro. How can light be dark? Because it says that where God is, that's totally incomprehensible to us. It's not light. It's just it's beyond understanding. Like the king, you can't understand how much money the king has. The king has everything. So it doesn't make any sense to say the king is rich or that the king is poor. By the king, rich and poor is the same thing. The king is a whole different level of rulership than a rich person has, for instance. Right? By a king, rich and poor are the same. Okay, maybe my example is not exactly 100%, but what the Rebbe is trying to point out to here is that the idea of spiritual, physical, there's more godliness and less godliness. That's Bina. But by Chachma, there's no such thing as more or less godliness. The essence of God is totally incomprehensible. It says that God makes darkness his hiding place. The true revelation of God, that's darkness. She'ein shum, there's no revelation there at all. Just bittul, total surrender of understanding. Therefore, there's no joy or pleasure even. This is total surrender. That's really what Shabbat is. Okay, let's just go 1 second. I want to go over to this. We're going to get to Matza. Oh, okay, ready? Here we go. Oh, that's what it means. Shamartem at the Shabbat. That's what it means, that we have to protect the Shabbat because it's holy. Kodesh means holy. Hu atzmo, he atzmo, Shabbat itself is what's called Kodesh. It's Kodesh Elyon. That's the level of Chachma. Shabbat is totally above happiness. Shabbat is godliness. That's why, according to the non-Jews are not supposed to keep Shabbat. Non-Jews are not allowed to keep Shabbat. They're not allowed to keep Shabbat. Even make another day Shabbat. They're not allowed to. Make Tuesday Shabbat or something like that. They're not allowed to. Maybe they can take a day of rest in order, if it enables them to work better. afterwards. And that's also questionable. Some opinions say that a non-Jew has to work all the time. A non-Jew has to be just happy with that he's created, that God is creating him, that God loves him, is creating him. A Jew is happy that he's the son of the Creator. We're representing the Creator in the world. The non-Jews are here in order to improve the creation, to make the creation a good place, a blessed place. We're here to make the creation a holy place. That's Chachma. That's the level of Shabbat, which is not the case. The holidays, that's called Mikre Kodesh. It's called the name of holiness. It's just a ray of godliness, etc. Ray of godliness from the upper holiness, that's called Netzach Hod and Yesod of God's Chachma. And a ray of God's Chachma, a ray of Shabbat comes into the holidays. A ray of Shabbat comes into what's called Ima, understanding. Shari, also on Yom Tov, there's also the revelation of God's understanding. You can also draw down Mochin Daba, holiness. It's called Mikra Kodesh. Holiness is pure godliness. That's the aspect of Chachma. That's what it means that the land of Israel is a holy land. The Jewish people are a holy people. The Torah is a holy Torah. Right? Asher Kiddushanu. The Torah is holy. What does it mean it's holy? It has a revelation of the essence of God that's totally beyond even the category of understanding. Pure reality. This aspect of Bina, there it's called something. It's called a thing. But nevertheless, it's not totally separate, God forbid. It's godliness. But this is a thing, so to speak, which is drawn from God's ayin, from God's nothing. Ayin v'yesh chachma bina, because we say that nothingness, not a no thing, and bina, which is a, so to speak, a thing of godliness, these are two friends that are never separated. Constantly is drawn down this bittul from Mochid. We can say that Abba is like life, and Bina is like consciousness. Understanding life. Liot bechinas Mochen de Ema, his galus atainug revelation of pleasure, which is drawn down from Or Ein Sof, that there's no thought which can be grasped from. There's no pleasure from this, from something separate. It's not separate. Elashneim lehanos begile or ze machmas yurida. So that's the idea of Chachma and Bina being revealed into the world in order to create the world. Okay, 1 second. Let's go to the world. Okay, now we've understood a little bit about Chachma and Bina. Let's just jump down here 1 minute. Hine, Nimsa, so it come. I'm sorry, 1 second. No, skip. I'm sorry. Okay. 1 minute. Excuse me. All right. So, okay, that's the idea of Mikra Kodesh. That's the holidays. The holidays are Mikra Kodesh. It's called calling holy, the name of holiness. Like a person that calls to somebody. Kamo Kriya Ba'adam, like a person calls to his friend, he calls him by his name. The name of a person is just a ray of that person. So it is also Mikra Kodesh. That's the name, so to speak, of godliness. That's what's called into the holidays. Shu Rak Ha'ar is just a ray of godliness from this level of Abba, from the essence of God. The essence of God, that's Abba. That's like Bruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed. Like it says, Vayaz David Shem. Okay, just so that we don't get too spiritual about this whole thing, the Rebbe is talking about reality. Where does reality come from? Where does reality come from? It says reality comes from God. So you look in the world and you see, so this is reality. That's it. This is God. This is what God is. No, there's also, this world is covering over truth. This world is covering over truth. It's not really real. So what do you mean it's not real? You see the world. Here's the world. The world is being created by God. He says, yeah, but that's so to speak. Listen, let me show you what heaven is like, right? Heaven is like a little glimpse of heaven. A person passes out, whatever, goes, ooh, this is amazing. You feel godliness, you feel the source of life. This doesn't depend on me. This is the source of life. You feel great. He says that's not the source of life. That's the immediate source of life. That's like the immediate, it's like the plug in the wall. That's where electricity comes from. It doesn't come from there. There's a powerhouse. What's the powerhouse? The powerhouse that's what produces electricity. That's what, and that you can't get electricity directly from the powerhouse. So you have to tone it down. It says that's the same thing as Chachma and Bina. Bina is like light that comes into the world. That's the power which is directly, so to speak, enlivening the world. That's the spiritual aspect of the world. That's Bina. That's like the holidays. That's the letter Hey of God's name. But Chachma, that's the Yud of God's name. That's the source of the whole business. So it says on the holidays, we have to draw from this Chachma into Bina. How do we do this? That's by means of the prayers and saying Hallel. But this is only from the rabbis, and from the Torah, and Pesach is drawn down by eating matzah. How do we draw down this Chachma into Bina? How do we go down from the source of life into life? An incomprehensible reality into sort of comprehensible reality. How do you say from this God into spirituality? That's by on Passover, that's matzah. Matzah is Chachma. It's called a Chachma, a small little level of Chachma that can be shining in. That's matzah is mochin de Abba. When the Jews ate matzah, they got a little blast of the essence of God inside of them. It says a child does not know how to call his father until he tastes the taste of bread, wheat. That's why God chose the Jewish people to eat wheat before they left, because God wanted the Jewish people to have a feeling of what God is, not just to follow orders, to have a feeling of who their father is, what God is. It's like it says by a child. It says a child doesn't really know how to recognize, to call his father until he eats bread. Now, the cats and dogs and things like that, I think they recognize their father. I don't know. Maybe they recognize their mother. But anyway, children, it says for a child to recognize his father, to know this is his father, it has to be by means of eating wheat. That's what it says in the Talmud. He nimshach is drawn down from above understanding. This awareness that God is our Father is like a child knowing his father is only by means of eating bread, grain. That's what it says. Us also, in order to know our Father in heaven, the Jewish people, to feel that it's our Father, is by eating grain. And it happens to be that God's made it has to be grain and very, how do you say, the exactly prepared to be matzah. And matzah hasn't got any taste. Matzah hasn't got any elevation. It's not expanding. Matzah is just bread and water, and that's all there is. Chometz is bread and water, but you leave it to rise. There's also a lot of air. So it's what you see is not what's really there. It's deceptive. But matzah is not deceptive. It's just pure. What there is, that's pure reality. That's the level of Chachma. This is above understanding. This is Abba. This is Chachma. And it's in the matzah that we eat on Passover. That's called food. It's called the food of faith. Michla de Behemenuta. Matzah is called the food of faith. Therefore, Hamshachat Mochin, drawing down this, what's called the aspect of God's Chachma, pure reality of godliness, into matzah, it's only the first night, because that's the holiday night. But from then on, it says, Matzot Yochel et Shiva Yomim. There, it says that matzot should be eaten on the 7 days. What does it mean? That you have to eat the 7 days, you have to feed the 7 days, which that's come from the level of Abba. The 7 days, that's the 7 emotions. On the first day, we get a blast of true reality, what God is, what we believe in, becomes ingrained inside of us. We eat it, becomes part of it. And then the rest of the days, we use this inspiration that we got from the first night to feed the 7 days. The 7 days that corresponds to the 7 emotions. Like it says, like it's known from Sphira to Omer, that the first week This is the 7 aspects of Abba, of Chachma, that it's drawn down into the 7 emotions. Okay, when the Jews left Egypt, then Eino Nog Isur Chometz, then Chometz was only forbidden on the first night. Why? Because there was Moses and Aaron, that both of them, that's 2 aspects of Chachma, of God's wisdom. And there was also the cloud of glory. The cloud of Aaron surrounded them. These are called the Makifim, the surrounding levels of Abba, of Chachma. They felt the essence of God. That was the first night when they left Egypt. It says the cloud killed all the snakes and the serpents and the scorpions. And in the desert, when they were in the desert, it says that in the desert, because this surrounding level, it blinds the eyes of all external forces. There couldn't be any Unica. Like I think I told you the story that the Maskilim, they came into city of Lubavitch and they tried to bring, how do you say, philosophy and things like that, and draw children away from Judaism. Teach people to be more logical. And they said, we don't have any success over here. The people, before they even say the Rebbe's name, they wash their hands. It just doesn't make any sense. These people are just insane. They're just crazy. You can't reason with them. You know, you should think maybe the Torah is not true. Maybe I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear. Why not? I don't want to hear it. Right? That says because the surrounding level that blinds all the doubts, all the snakes and the scorpions. That's Chachma. Therefore, it was enough that they draw down this level of Chachma on the first night. That's the first night of Passover. And then, on the first night of Passover, then it was forbidden to eat any Chometz. The clouds of glory had not yet formed around them, only when they left Egypt. But for the 7 days, so the first night of Passover, there was no clouds to kill the scorpions and the snakes. They had Moses and Aaron. So they had to honor Moses and Aaron by not this revelation of Chachma, by keeping away from Chometz. But the other 7 days, it wasn't forbidden because there couldn't be any Chometz. It says, we'll see. But in the generations, the 7 days we eat matzah. After they left Egypt, 7 days we have to eat matzah. And really, the commandment is really not to eat chometz the 7 days, that there shouldn't be any nurture. But matzah, that's what they ate the first night. Dai b'layla rishon. It's also by us. Also by us. The commandment to eat matzah, on Passover, you don't have to eat matzah. Only the first night you have to eat. Only the first night you have to eat matzah. Except for that, you can eat potatoes if you want to. You can't eat chometz. When they left Egypt, though, they ate it for 7 days. Here we'll see. The erev tochlu matzah. This is the evening we eat matzah. That's a set a chova, the obligation, because yomim tzaveh chazdo. Yomim, that's the azlim kol yomim. This is the clouds of Aaron. It says also it won't go away day and night. Hainu yom rishon, the first night alone. That's what's called chesed. That's what's called God's kindness is revealed on the first night. So really, they didn't have to eat. When the Jews left Egypt, it was forbidden for them to eat chametz all the other days because they had the clouds of glory and everything that protected them. That protected them. It says now in our generation, he's going to explain it more. We're going to have to do that tomorrow. And now the mitzvah of eating matzah was only on the first night. After that, they couldn't eat chametz because God revealed himself on them. And the bread couldn't rise up because rising up indicates egotism. There couldn't be any egotism. God's revelation on the first night knocked it all out. It says the same thing as we do. The first night we have to eat matzah, and matzah, that gives us this first blast of chachma, and that's this level of of kodesh, and it draws down a Yom Tov of Passover is by means of matzah. It says that gives us an awareness of what God is. So it comes out that in matzah, that the first night of matzah is an obligation, And the matzah of all the other days of Passover, it says the bread of our fathers couldn't raise up. We don't really have to eat matzah. Why? Because they were automatically protected by the revelation of God the first night. And this we're going to go over. Also, I want to go over this also, what we said over here. We'll go over this tomorrow night. What we're talking about is now this is the beginning of Judaism. This is the birth of Judaism. These are the first commandments the Jewish people got. They were born from the womb of Egypt. They were taken out, and the first thing they were given is matzah. The same thing with us. We're reborn every year when we eat matzah. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do